on arming Kurdish groups. This is something the U.S. now is seriously discussing. Again, the ramifications is beyond. It's a huge topic because first of all, what would this mean for the U.S. Turkish relationship? Because if it's something that will alienate the Turks even more, is you start building up the Kurdish groups. But this has also been done before, though. That is, in 1991, President Bush encouraged the Iraqis to rise up against Saddam Hussein, and they were, they were said that they were, left to their own and slaughtered. Also in Syria, they were also seen as being used, the Kurds again against Assad, and then yeah, also seen to be abandoned. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how well the Kurdish groups in Iran, to what extent they're able to get them on board as well, being frontline soldiers. But if you have these four countries with a lot of Kurds, that is in Iraq, Syria, Iran, and Turkey, and the U.S. now armed the Kurds in 3 out of 4 of those regions. This can't be good for a relationship with Turkey. This is a massive military power, by the way. And also, what would this mean for Iran? That's also tied to it, because it, a few days ago, we were still pretending that the purpose of the war was to help protesters and, stop ballistic missiles. Now this was about stoking civil war. This is burning a country down, 90 million people, with hundreds of thousands, if not millions, dead if they're successfully in triggering a civil war. So I guess the humanitarian way of selling the war was always stupid. We do it every time, and it works every time. So I get it, but surely that must be out the window now.
I think it's unconscionable what we've done. That's, so what's new? People tell me, people ask me in emails, what's new, Larry? You were there. You saw how unconscionable we are under a whole series of presidents, especially since George W. Bush and 9/11. But I think there's a new tone and tint to this. And it's that way, I think, because we have, as I said, so little understanding of the region and so little understanding of the people. At the same time, we're killing them at a rate that's probably fantastic once we find out how many are dead already. I'm hearing 150 or 1,000 or whatever in Iran. With all the ordnance that Pete Hegseth says has been dropped, if that's all they've killed, then they are sorry shots. That's all I got to say, because there are people all over the place in that country, especially where they're attacking. And we already seen they killed the children in the school. I think they hit a hospital now. They had nurses running out in the street. Not very good targeting, dudes. All to say that I don't think we care anymore. I really don't think we care. We've been carefully taught by Netanyahu, who doesn't care a hang about all the civilians, men, women, children, babies, dogs, cats, and everything else he's killing in Gaza and the West Bank. Now, listen to John Hagee just a few minutes ago, right before I came on with you, the head of Christians United for Israel. Here's John Hagee up there, just like Huckabee, saying this is a holy war. This is a holy war. And you boys and girls out there, we're praying for you. We're praying for you, but you are on the right side. You are bringing about Armageddon. You're bringing about the return of Jesus Christ. This is a guy who influences a lot of Americans with his preaching about being on Israel's side, like Huckabee demonstrated in that traitorous interview he gave, but nonetheless, he told the truth. Told the truth on Netanyahu in particular. So we've got all these different currents working right now. We've got Hegseth working on the U.S. Armed Forces at the rank level with preachers and Christianity and taking their oath to God and Jesus instead of the Constitution. And we got him working on the upper ranks by letting people go. This director of the Joint Staff, 3-star Navy admiral that he just let go. He's carefully vetting the military so that when January the 6th comes again, the military will not stand on the sidelines. He's building the military to support whatever whatever Trump has to do, whether it's a full-fledged coup or canceling the midterm elections or something in between. He's building a military to do that. And it's really alarming watching him do that. And this is a perfect reason, once we find out how badly enmeshed we are and have to either withdraw or double down and can't double down because we don't have any men and women to double down with in terms of ground forces. And Hegseth has already talked about ground forces. We can't do that. The most we could put on the ground in Iran is 400, 500,000. And I don't think we could do that just as Netanyahu's finding out with this 90,000 reservists call up. Lots of them aren't showing up. Tell me where 18 and 19-year-olds in this country, were we to fully mobilize, would go if they suddenly found out they were subject to the draft, Mexico and Canada. We can't do this, Glenn, and yet we are posturing as if we can, even to the extent of going all the way and mounting an invasion of Iran. Someone asked me, well, how would you ever do that? I said, you've got amphibious bottoms. We don't have many. Marine Corps has been complaining for 20 years, and it's gotten worse every year. But there's enough if we throw them all together, even the broken ones, and we sail them over there, and we put the Marines, even the broken ones, on these bottoms, we could probably, somewhere around Bandar Abbas or, somewhere on the southern coast there, we could put a force ashore. It would be swallowed. Within 6 months, it would disappear. So that's where we are, and it's absurd. Your question about the Kurds, from which I deviated majorly, I dealt with the Kurds most closely in northern Iraq. Operation Provide Comfort, and then the absolute backing away from our promises to them, and they're saying never again, and starting a fairly, in fact, in terms of Iraq today, modern Iraq today, they're probably the most successful portion of Iraq. Sulaymaniyah and other Erbil and other places up there, and they've gotten a good agreement now with Baghdad about the oil. And the majors are back in because the majors did not want to go in there and mess with that Kirkuk and Mosul oil, because if there was a dispute between Baghdad and the Kurds, the majors didn't want the lawsuits that might fall out of that. So they're apparently going back in now because they've settled that. This will perturbate that. This will perturbate that major. So that's your Iraqi Kurds who had come to a modus vivendi with Turkey. They were getting along pretty well because they said they would not rile up the Kurds in southeastern Turkey. They would not send agents into Turkey, and they pretty much lived by that. And Turkey promised not to invade them. They periodically invaded them and pounded them a little bit. In Syria, it's a different ballgame altogether. I think what best describes Syria is chaos for everybody, all the groups, except Israel. Israel has been busy going around and making sure every little foot it consolidates is consolidated in a way that's defensible. So they're taking little pieces of Syria as they go along, and they don't give a damn about Damascus. They'd like to have it and probably covet it very much, but they don't give a damn right now about it. And then as far as the Kurds, as they overlap in Iran and Syria, I think that's the most dangerous group right now because they haven't gone through this process of learning, such as it was, that the Kurds in northern Iraq have. So they're apt to try something just because it's arms and they're free or whatever. But I don't think they'll be very successful because I think the Iranians have that sort of thing in mind. One of the reasons they got the helicopters from Russia, the latest shipment of major end item equipment from Russia was helicopters, attack helicopters. I think the reason they got those was just that. They're the best weapon to use against these border infiltrators, if you will, these armed people that are trying to overthrow the Iranian Republic and coming from places in the northern part of the Persian Gulf and on up into the Azerbaijan and Armenia. They're best killed with helicopters. So I think that's what they got the helicopters for. They anticipated this and they said, okay, come on. That plus SAS. They wanted to take on the British SAS with these helicopters too, because the warfare has proven over the last decade or so that's the best way to use against irregular forces like that are regular, guerrillas that are actually working for a state. So I think the Iranians have thought this out. I really do. I think they've thought it out. No doubt there will be some surprises for them, but of all the contestants in this conflict, They've thought it out the longest and the best.
As you spoke, some contradictions came to mind. That is, the USS, the Iranian government is unacceptable because it's a theocracy, that you have the religious leadership having political power. But at the same time, you have the US ambassador Huckabee saying Israel should control half the Middle East because God gave it to them. And also, we have to prepare for while you're fighting a holy war, and pledging allegiance to Jesus, all of this. But it's a little bit same with the nuclear weapons, as you also suggested. That is, we have to fight the Iranians so they can't develop nuclear weapons. However, they said they won't develop nuclear weapons. Our intelligence say they're not developing nuclear weapons. They signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty. They agreed to the JCPOA with additional inspections for transparency, allowing in the IAEA. And they're all doing all of this while an illegal nuclear power, Israel, which didn't sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty and acquired nuclear weapons, and they demand that Iran must be disarmed of nuclear weapons it doesn't have, or stop a nuclear program it doesn't have, nuclear weapons program. It's all very bizarre to see these contradictions. But
Throw one more bizarre aspect of it in there. Trump destroyed that program, remember, with the B-2s?
oh yeah, it's obliterated, and also on the White House press release, it said anyone claiming it's not obliterated are spreading fake news. So
Yeah.
now here on the other side of that, it is very bizarre. It's I don't think they thought out the narratives yet either. In terms of, I saw Rubio talk to the journalist. He was making the point that, listen, this was it was justified war. We had the right to attack because the threat was imminent. So why would Iran attack you? Well, Israel would attack Iran, and when that happened, Iran would attack us probably. So that made it imminent. Now it's legitimate. So, and then they said, okay, so Israel started it. They pulled us in. No, that's not what I said. It's like, yeah, it's pretty much what you said. So they don't have the story. It's very, at least in Iraq, as horrible as it was, they were hammering on about weapons of mass destruction. All the media were repeating the same talking points. There was a narrative in place. When it wasn't, they had the fallback option of, okay, we were just spreading democracy. But here, they're actually contradictory narratives, and it doesn't, we have to help Iranians. They deserve freedom and peace, and a brutal government. At the same time, we're bombing, the airport, hospitals, schools, civilian residents. I mean, it's just this. Yeah, just to top it all off, even the speaker, Mike Johnson, he came out and gave a speech, and he was making the point that Iran started this war. They declared war on us. We never went to war. We had an operation. He didn't call it a special military operation, but an operation. And then now the Iranians started the war. It wasn't us. We were just bombing a little bit. And he was also making the point that what they did is unforgivable. They attacked American embassies in Saudi Arabia and all. This is sovereign territory, but you bomb their schools, their hospitals. This is also sovereign territory. It's really, you should watch this. It's a crazy speech, but it's the same kind of contradictions and the failure to construct a cohesive narrative for everyone to kind of rally around. But there's nothing there.
At least I'll say this for John Hagee. I find it really makes me ill to listen to him. But he says the truth. We are out there. You are out there. You are crusaders for Jesus Christ. We are going to win. And of course, what he's going to win is the rapture. Then Jesus is going to come down and kill all the unbelievers and establish the 1,000-year kingdom. And all these people will be wafted up to heaven in this kingdom. But at least he's consistent, and he doesn't make any bones about it. These people lie all the time, and the lies are becoming so piled one on another that Rubio, if you saw that, you saw the same one I did, I guess, because he's actually picking the questions because he knows this reporter's smart, or he knows this one. So he's, I'm not asking, I'm not talking to you. He got so flabbergasted, I thought he was going to flip a lid right there on the spot. I wish he had. We can't keep our narrative straight, not only amongst people, Hegseth, Rubio, Trump, anybody speaking, that bimbo who speaks for the administration. Not only is that inconsistent, but the individuals are inconsistent themselves from hour to hour and day to day. Uh, who the hell in America could make heads or tails out of anything in terms of what Trump is really trying to achieve? And I think that's why you're seeing polls that show less than 28% of Americans support this.